Welcome to Life Stories Network. I'm glad you are here because I need someone to hear this. I never thought I would tell this story out loud, but keeping it inside felt heavier every day. My Thanksgiving used to be simple. I cooked a lot. I welcomed people. I let everyone feel comfortable in my home. I believed family meant loyalty. I believed respect flowed both ways. I thought I had a place in their hearts. I thought my house was mine. I was wrong. I want you to listen closely because it still stings, still surprises me, still feels unreal. I lived alone in the house my parents left me. It was cozy, quiet, and full of memories. Family always gathered there during holidays, not because they liked me. They liked the space. They liked the kitchen, the dining area, the backyard. People complimented the house and skipped complimenting me. I noticed it, but I ignored it. I wanted peace. I wanted to believe kindness would return to me someday. I wanted to keep everyone united. I wanted my parents to feel proud wherever they were. I never imagined things would fall apart this badly. Everything started 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I reached out like I always did. I sent messages in our family group chat. I asked who wanted to come this year. No one responded. The chat stayed silent. I sent another reminder. Still nothing. I checked to see if the messages delivered. Did my cousin posted a meme 10 minutes later, so I knew they were active? I felt confused, but I stayed calm. I convinced myself that everyone was busy. I convinced myself it was harmless. I convinced myself they would eventually reply. Not to overthink it. 3 days passed, then 5. Then a week, nothing. It felt strange because they usually answered fast, especially when free food and celebration were involved. I didn't want to beg for attention, so I stopped texting. I decided to spend Thanksgiving alone. I planned to cook something small. I planned to watch movies. Planned to relax and avoid drama. I wanted a quiet holiday for once. Felt a little sad, but also relieved. That feeling didn't last long. My peace never lasts long with them. They always find a way to ruin it. The day before Thanksgiving, my aunt called me. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't greet me. She didn't apologize for ignoring my messages. She went straight into instructions. She told me to leave my house keys under the mat the next morning because they needed to borrow the place. She said they were planning a Thanksgiving dinner, and my house was perfect for it. She said they already invited everyone. She said they needed space. She said it like it belonged to them. She didn't ask permission. She informed me like I had no say. The disrespect hit hard. I asked, why not do it at your house? She said hers was too small. She said mine was better. She said it was tradition. She acted like my discomfort was inconvenient. She assumed I would agree because I always did. She assumed my silence meant approval. She assumed kindness meant weakness. I told her I already had plans at home. She paused for a second, then laughed. She said, "You don't even have friends. You don't need a big house for yourself." My chest tightened. I didn't respond right away. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of hearing me hurt. I told her no. I said it clearly. I said it firmly. She didn't argue. She simply hung up. No goodbye, no reaction, just silence. I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. I didn't know what they would do next. I placed my phone down and tried to breathe. I convinced myself they got the message. I convinced myself the situation was done. I convinced myself they would respect my boundary. I underestimated them. I forgot what entitlement looks like. I forgot how far people go when they believe they own you. Thanksgiving morning arrived. I woke up early and started preparing breakfast. The house felt peaceful. The weather outside looked calm. I wanted a slow, quiet day. I felt proud of myself for saying no. Setting boundaries felt new but empowering. Then I heard cars outside. A lot of cars. I walked to the window and froze. My entire family stood outside with bags, food, trays, decorations, and speakers. They looked excited. They looked happy. They looked like they belonged there. No bothered calling me. No one warned me. No one waited for me to open the door. My cousin used a spare key I didn't know she had. She unlocked my front door and walked in like she owned the place. Everyone followed her. They brought in groceries and drinks. They smiled at each other. They ignored me. They stepped over my shoes. They filled my kitchen. They opened my fridge and cabinets. They moved furniture. They acted like I was invisible. My heart pounded, but no words came out. I stood still and watched my home turn into a party venue without my permission. It felt surreal. It felt like a nightmare happening in daylight. I finally spoke. I said, "What are you doing?" My voice shook. They barely turned around. My aunt smirked and said, "We're celebrating Thanksgiving. You should have told us you weren't." Using the house, I tried reminding her of the call. She interrupted me. She said I misunderstood. She said they didn't need my presence to use the place. She said family shares. That word hit me hard. Share. They weren't sharing, they were taking. They were intruding. Oh. They were disrespecting me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kick them out. I wanted to cry. I didn't. Before I could react, my uncle pulled me aside. He whispered, "Don't make a scene. It will embarrass you." That sentence stabbed deeper than anything else. Embarrass me in my own house? I felt my throat burn. My hands shook. My mind went blank. They wanted a party without me. They wanted my house, not my presence. I realized that moment who I was to them. A free venue, a convenient address. Nothing more. Something inside me snapped quietly. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just nodded. They thought they won. They didn't know what was coming next. I walked upstairs and closed my bedroom door. Their laughter echoed through the hallway. Music played loud. Someone yelled my name like a joke. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. I felt numb. I felt small. I felt erased in my own house. I kept asking myself, why did they treat me like this? What did I do wrong? I took care of them. I helped them. I never asked for anything back. Yet here I was, hiding in my own room like a stranger. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. I needed clarity, needed a plan. I needed to protect myself. I listened to every sound. Cabinet door slammed, glasses clinked, chairs scraped across the floor. Someone dragged my dining table closer to the center. They didn't even ask. They didn't care. It felt like being robbed, but legally. My cousin shouted into the kitchen, telling someone to move my plants because they ruined the aesthetic. My plants, the ones I nurtured for years, the ones my mother planted before she died. They didn't know, and they didn't bother asking. My hands curled into fists. I couldn't let this continue. I deserved respect. I deserved control over my own home. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app connected to the house. I checked the settings. I saw motion alerts and camera recordings. Every room was being monitored, except bedrooms and bathrooms. I watched the live footage of my family laughing, dancing, drinking, and trashing my kitchen like it belonged to them. Something inside me hardened. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't miscommunication. This was entitlement. They believed I wouldn't fight back. They believed I was too scared or too polite. They believed I needed them more than they needed me. They had no idea I was done being silent. I walked back downstairs. The moment I appeared, some people looked confused, like they forgot I lived there. My aunt waved at me with a smile that wasn't a smile. She said, "You should get dressed. Dinner starts soon," like I was a guest in my own house. I stared at her long enough for her smile to fade. I asked the room who gave permission to use my home. Everyone grew quiet. Someone mumbled something about family tradition. My uncle laughed like I was being dramatic. My cousin rolled her eyes. The level of disrespect felt unreal. I let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. Simply said, "You all have 15 minutes to leave." They blinked like I was speaking another language. My aunt stepped forward and said, "You're being ridiculous. We already set everything up. You can't ruin Thanksgiving." "For everyone," I responded. "You ruined it the moment you trespassed." She scoffed and said, "Families don't trespass." I pulled out my phone and played the recorded call from yesterday. The part where she told me to leave the keys under the mat. The part where I said no. The room shifted instantly. Faces dropped, heads lowered. Excuses disappeared. My cousin tried defending her, saying I misunderstood. I cut her off and pointed toward the door. My voice didn't shake. My breathing stayed steady. I said, "I'm not asking again. You need to leave." My uncle stepped closer like he wanted to intimidate me. He said, "If you call the police, you'll embarrass the family." I smiled, but not out of joy. I said, "No, you embarrassed yourselves." Then I held up my phone showing the security footage. Every person entering without permission. Every door opening. Every box of food brought inside. Faces fell. Someone gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh no." They finally understood the seriousness. Still, no one moved. They thought I would back down again. They thought guilt would change my mind. Not this time. I dialed 911 in front of them. I didn't hesitate. I didn't flinch. I calmly explained that people entered my home without consent and refused to leave. The operator said help was on the way. I put the phone on speaker so everyone heard it. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. People stared at me like I betrayed them, but betrayal happened long before this moment. They crossed the line. I was only drawing it back where it belonged. My aunt finally snapped. She shouted, "How dare you do this to your family?" I replied, "How dare you treat me like I don't matter?" She turned red. My cousin whispered that I was being sensitive. Another cousin said it wasn't a big deal. They kept minimizing my pain, like always. That was the moment I realized something important. They never saw me as family. They saw me as convenience. They saw me as free space. They saw me as someone who wouldn't fight back. That version of me didn't exist anymore. I wasn't weak. I wasn't silent. I wasn't their backup plan. The police arrived within minutes. I watched through the window as two officers walked up the driveway. Suddenly, everyone started packing. People grabbed coats, purses, food trays, and decorations. They moved fast. They wanted to leave before the officers came inside. Pride vanished. Confidence disappeared. No one argued anymore. No one claimed they were right. They looked embarrassed. They looked guilty. They looked like people who finally realized they crossed a boundary. My aunt begged me to tell the officers it was a misunderstanding. I said, "No, you created this situation. You can explain it yourself." She looked stunned, like she didn't know who I was anymore. The officers entered and asked questions. I stayed calm. I answered respectfully. I showed proof of ownership. I played the recorded phone call. I showed the security footage. The officers asked everyone to leave immediately. They complied. No one said goodbye. No one apologized. They walked out quietly, carrying half-cooked turkeys, unopened pies, and bags of decorations. Shoes dragged. Across the floor, whispering filled the air. I followed them out the door. When the last person stepped outside, I locked the door and exhaled. The house felt lighter. The silence felt healing. For the first time in years, I felt in control. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. The aftermath hit harder than the event itself. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, messages, voice notes, angry texts. Some accused me of destroying Thanksgiving. Some called me dramatic. Some said I humiliated the family. Some demanded I apologize. No one acknowledged what they did. No one said sorry. No one asked how I felt. They didn't learn anything. They didn't reflect. They doubled down. That was when I realized protecting myself once wasn't enough. I needed to ensure They never did this again. I needed to make a permanent change. And trust me, I did. The next morning, I woke up with sunlight on my face and a sore feeling in my chest. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful yet. I walked downstairs and saw the mess they left behind. Food stains on the counter. Paper plates in the sink. Decorations half hanging. Spilled drink on the rug. It didn't look like a celebration. It looked like a reminder. A reminder of how little they respected me. I stood in the middle of the living room and let myself feel everything. Anger, sadness, betrayal, but also clarity. That clarity felt powerful. It reminded me that I finally stood up for myself. There was no going back. I started cleaning, not because I wanted to erase the night, but because I wanted to reclaim my space. Every wiped counter felt like taking control. Every trash bag tied shut felt like closure. I played music while I worked, something calm, something that belonged to me. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. I didn't allow them to walk all over me. I didn't pretend everything was fine. I defended my home and my dignity. Still, a small part of me wondered if they would ever understand why. I doubted it. They always spun things to protect their own image. Around noon, my aunt sent a message in the family group chat. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what happened. She wrote a long message about how I ruined Thanksgiving for everyone. She called me selfish and disrespectful. She claimed that family traditions matter more than personal feelings. She even said the police incident made her look bad in the neighborhood. People reacted with sad emojis, angry emojis, and dramatic sentences about family unity. The blame shifted entirely toward me, like always. They refused to see the truth. They refused to admit they crossed a boundary. They wanted control back. I didn't respond. Instead, I muted the group. I realized that arguing never worked. Explaining never worked. Giving chances never worked. The only thing left was distance. Real distance. Permanent distance. I decided I needed to protect my future, not just my house. I called a locksmith and scheduled a full lock replacement. I also updated the security system, created new access codes, and removed every listed emergency contact connected to my family members. I even installed an alarm system for the back door. The locksmith asked if something happened. I smiled and said, I learned my lesson. And I meant it. The next step was emotional distance. I blocked the cousin who used the spare key. I removed family members who only reached out for favors. I deleted old conversations that carried pain. I wasn't angry while doing it. I was calm. I was steady. I was choosing peace. My phone felt lighter afterward. My mind felt lighter too. Setting boundaries didn't destroy my family. Their disrespect did. I just finally acknowledged it. I looked around my living room and realized something important. This house wasn't a burden. It wasn't evidence of loneliness. It was mine. It was my safe place, and I deserved to protect it. 2 days later, my uncle showed up at my door unannounced. He knocked loudly and yelled my name like nothing happened. I opened the door a few inches and blocked the entrance with my body. He looked shocked that I didn't invite him inside. He said the family expected an apology. He said everyone agreed I overreacted. He said I needed to fix things. I took a breath and said, "No, I don't." His eyes widened. No one in the family ever said no to him. He stared at me like I betrayed a sacred rule. Then he said the sentence that revealed everything. He said, "Family exists to serve each other." I replied, "You don't serve me. You use me." He didn't deny it. He just said I owed them. Owed them for what? Existing? Being born? Owning a house? I felt a strength inside me that I didn't recognize before. I said, "You all treated me like a building, not a person. And I'm done with that." He huffed, muttered something under his breath, and walked away. I closed the door and locked it. This time, the lock sounded like victory. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't question myself. I didn't replay the conversation in my head. I knew I did the right thing. Over the next week, things got quiet. The endless calls stopped. The dramatic texts slowed down. The group chat barely moved. It seemed like they finally realized I wasn't going to apologize, beg, or compromise. Without access to my house or my kindness, they lost interest. They moved on. They planned events somewhere else. They excluded me like they always did. But this time, I felt relieved. I wasn't missing anything. I wasn't being punished. I was being freed. I used that time to reconnect with myself. I cooked for myself. I read books. I decorated my home the way I wanted. I enjoyed silence. A month later, something unexpected happened. My younger cousin, the only one who ever treated me kindly, showed up at my door. She didn't come with excuses. She didn't defend them. She apologized. She said she felt ashamed. She said she didn't know they planned everything behind my back. She said she understood why I reacted the way I did. She told me she missed me. I believed her. I could hear the honesty in her voice. I let her inside. We talked for hours. We laughed. We shared stories. It felt like family, but in a healthy way. She reminded me that not everyone in my bloodline was toxic. She told me the family still complained about me, but she defended me. She told them respect is not optional. She told them I deserved boundaries. She told them I didn't ruin Thanksgiving. They did. Hearing someone stand up for me felt healing. I realized something I never considered before. Family isn't defined by last names, DNA, or holiday attendance. Family is defined by respect, empathy, and effort. Some people share your blood, but not your heart. And some people share your heart, but not your blood. I stopped chasing the wrong ones. This Thanksgiving was different. I cooked a small meal for myself. I lit candles, played soft music. I sat at my dining table, the same one they dragged across the floor, and I felt grateful. Not for what happened, but for what it taught me. I learned that silence doesn't keep peace. Boundaries do. I learned that people treat you the way you allow. I learned that choosing yourself isn't selfish. Survival. I didn't need a room full of people to feel valued. I only needed self-respect. I didn't make them regret it through revenge or cruelty. I made them regret it by changing access to my life. I showed them that I'm no longer the person they can use. Sometimes the biggest revenge is finally loving yourself enough to walk away. And trust me, I walked away and I never looked back.